very much. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Thank you, and thank you all. And let me start by offering my sincere congratulations first to Pete DeZuris, recently elected as our new chair of CU Solutions Group, and certainly to my friend Pete Gates, who frankly is the only chair we've had. CUSG has only existed as a combined entity for 5 years. Prior to coming to CUSG's board, Pete was, as Mr. DeZuris said, on the Q Corp board. We had 3 companies that were merged together, and Pete Gates helped the board through that process to create the entity that we have today. He's a good friend, and I appreciate his leadership very much. So congratulations to both you gentlemen. Well, listen, I am always inspired when I can look out at all of you, the representatives of this great Michigan credit union community. I do have 2 roles as CEO of CU Solutions Group and as CEO of Michigan Credit Union League. Tomorrow we'll have our chairman, John Buckley, and Ken Ross on the stage and put a little more emphasis on the trade association side. Today is an opportunity for me, in my capacity as CEO of CUSG, to talk a little bit about a subject that is near and dear to all of you, whether you are board members, CEOs, management staff, team members, or employees and executives of credit union service organizations. And that is, how do we keep up with change and how do we balance change? And let me ask all of you, how many of you wish you had $1 for every presentation you've sat through where a speaker has talked about disruption and change, right? Well, I wish you could get another $1 because I'm going to do that as well. But I'm going to take a slightly different angle. And I hope that what you get out of this presentation is that obviously we do need to position for change. We need to position for the future. And there's some things that we need to pay attention to in all of our credit unions and credit union organizations. But we can't let ourselves be overwhelmed by it, because the fact is the median-sized credit union across the country has $35 million in assets and probably 20 employees. In Michigan, it's higher than that. It's about a $70 million median size. So it's easy for the vast majority of our credit unions to dismiss a lot of these concepts and say, you know what, that's great for the big banks and the big credit unions, but we're not going to be able to do a lot of that. One message I want to reinforce, I want you to accept, and this is true of large credit unions too, that we are small in relative terms in the financial services industry. And actually there are advantages to being small, but we need to think big. Regardless of the size of the credit union, there are some themes that we need to focus on. So I recently read an article. I don't know if you've heard the term, can you do VUCA? I'm guessing not. I read an article in a corporate CEO magazine, actually, and this was written by a former Army general. Can you do VUCA? And 5 key strategies to success. I found it interesting. The acronym actually was coined by the U.S. Army. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. And the thought is, you know, in these times more than ever, we need executives and boards and team members who are okay with volatility because it's inherent in the financial services industry, who are okay with uncertainty in our individual roles and organizationally, who realize that the environment for running a credit union is much more complex than it's ever been before. And especially at the individual team member level, to deal with the fact that you're not always going to have clarity in what you're being asked to do. There is ambiguity is inherent in personal leadership and in leadership of any kind. The 5 things that came out of this article are going to these are corporate principles that are going to relate to running an effective financial institution and effective credit union. And it's just interesting to see what the large corporate execs are talking about in companies like Starbucks and General Motors. Shaping the culture around mission and values is as important for credit unions as it is for General Motors. Leveraging technology, obviously. Aligning your organizational structure so you have the right team members organized together, working together. Establishing a learning organization, and of course, leadership development. So keeping in mind that these are principles that make businesses of any size successful, I'm going to drill down a little more specifically to the financial services environment. But before I do, I had a great opportunity recently. Actually, the middle of May, I traveled to France and was able to start out in Paris and visit the Louvre and all the museums that are so rich in history for France and Europe, and all that the people of France have gone through over the years. And then we went out to Castle Country in the Loire Valley. And we really hadn't planned to take a drive to Normandy Beach, but we decided to do it, and I'm so glad I did. As we arrived at Normandy Beach, we toured the American Soldier Cemetery and a great museum that's there, and we peered out on Normandy Beach, where this incredible D-Day invasion occurred on June 6, 1944. And the stats are simply staggering. 156,000 Allied troops landed on that beach after extensive preparation. And by the end of June, as part of this Operation Overlord, which was to free and liberate France and Western Europe, over 2 million Allied troops landed on those beaches. There were almost 12,000 aircraft, 23,000 airborne troops, 15,000 sorties. Most of the bombing missed the targets. The Allied troops were bombing the Normandy area and the beach, trying to get the German troops who were entrenched out of their entrenched spots so that the Allied troops could come on. And instead what happened, because we didn't have the smart bomb technology, over 15,000 civilians were killed, largely as a result of that. 7,000 vessels, 4,400 Allied soldiers died. Of the 5 beaches, of course, Omaha Beach was the most challenging. 850,000 German troops awaited our Allied forces. There were countless miscues. This was the largest amphibious military operation in history, and there were countless miscues. They had to delay the launch because of weather. They had these amphibious tanks that were enclosed in a boat-type structure. 90%, it was a brilliant innovation, but 90% of them sank in the rough surf. The military, very well-intentioned, fed the troops a wonderful greasy egg and bacon and full breakfast, thinking that would help, and about a third of the soldiers became seasick and were unable to defend themselves. But despite the miscues, obviously, the course of history was altered. And arguably, we're free today in large part because of the incredible bravery of those soldiers. These troops moving their way across France to liberate Paris that was under German rule for about 4 years, defeat the Nazi troops, and ultimately give us the quality of life and liberty that we have today. I'd like to just pause for a moment and recognize all of our active and veteran military folks who are here in the audience. Could you please stand if you are either active or former U.S. military? Let us recognize you for your service and bravery. And the transition point I want to make is that this kind of operation and the planning that went into it, running a credit union or CUSG or a crediting organization pales in significance to these types of operations, both in terms of what is required and the consequences. But this VUCA concept can be applied as well. When I visited this cemetery, I took a few pictures, and it was a very sobering moment. And there was a plaque that was a quote from a French civilian. I'm going to practice my French. On ne voit plus que des Américains dans les rues de la ville. Il n'y a plus un seul Allemand. C'est une joie indescriptible. André Massé, I'm going to translate. The Americans are the only ones in the streets of the town. There are no more Germans. It is an indescribable joy. I highly recommend you take a trip out there to France and Normandy and experience that incredible moment that I was able to experience. But again, from a transition standpoint, whatever it is that we're charged with as leaders, whether it's something that daunting and impactful, or something that is as important as influencing the lives of our members and communities who benefit from affordable financial services, the leadership principles apply. Now, it turns out consumers are dealing with VUCA of their own. A recent story in U.S. News and World Report laid out 8 scary financial stats. And you know these factoids. They're a part of what drives you to serve your members and your communities. But 2/3 of Americans can't come up with $1,000 for an emergency. Only 24% of millennials have even any basic financial literacy. 2 of 5 I had never heard this one, 40% of couples actually commit financial infidelity. Well, obviously, not sharing financial details is a red flag with your partner. 1/3 of all adults who have a credit score have debt in collections. That's rather remarkable. And slightly under half of Americans even have a rainy day fund at all. The number of consumers over 60 who have had student loan debt, the number of consumers over 60 with existing student loan debt has quadrupled over the past 10 years. 1/3 of households pay the minimum on their credit card each month. And finally, half of those who have student loan debt are concerned that they'll ever be able to pay it off. And the facts go on, and this is what drives us as credit union leaders to make a difference. Now in Michigan, I can pause and celebrate, and this is true across the country, but in Michigan, I'm very proud of some of the stats that demonstrate the job that you're all doing. I mentioned earlier that the average size credit union in Michigan, the median average is twice the size of credit unions nationally. We serve 52% of the population. That's by far the highest penetration level among the larger states in the country. 29% market share of household deposits. Our growth metrics are comparable or better. Significantly more of our credit unions are state chartered, and that's because you've worked together with your league to strengthen the state charter. So credit unions have more permissive field of membership regulations, greater ability to invest in CUSOs, and on and on. And the last stat I found very interesting, because of the so-called lost decade that led to the national Great Recession, where so many of our Michigan-based banks were challenged and had to merge into out-of-state banks, for Michigan-chartered banks, credit unions actually have more branches than they do. Our total aggregate branches for credit unions in Michigan, 1,178, compared to 100 fewer for those banks that are chartered in Michigan. Our aggregate assets are $60 billion. Michigan-based banks, $79 billion. We're almost on par with them. So how far we've come, those financial metrics are only meaningful because they demonstrate that you are all committed to growing your memberships and your member savings and their access to affordable loans. So give yourselves a big round of applause for what you're doing in the Michigan credit union community to advance the credit union idea. This presentation will be available to you. We'll send you an email clip so that you can have these slides. I wanted to recognize with these next couple of slides, every year we identify credit unions at certain milestones. Lakes Community Credit Union, Muskegon Co-op, Wolverine State exceeded 10,000 members last year. Extra and United Financial exceeded 20,000 members. Kellogg Community hit a milestone of over 35,000 members. Team 1, Michigan Educational Security Members First, hit a milestone of over 50,000. Dort Federal hit a milestone of over 80,000 members. And our largest Michigan credit union, Lake Michigan Credit Union, exceeded 300,000 members. And you all have those milestones, but it's worthy of noting them from time to time. Our fastest growing smaller credit unions in terms of share and deposit and asset growth, Allegan Community Federal Credit Union grew almost 18% last year. First United grew almost 17%. Thornapple almost 12%. Among our larger credit unions over $1 billion, Advia Credit Union grew 24%. Community Choice 23%. United Federal 15%. And I only show these because credit unions large and small are figuring out how to not only be relevant, but highly successful. Size should not matter if you think big. The next slide is membership growth. Similarly, among the credit unions under 50 million, again, Allegan Community grew its membership by 9%, Thornapple 5%, Limestone 3%. I think there's a feeling sometimes in the credit space that only the large credit unions are growing and the small ones aren't because we aggregate data. The fact is, smaller credit unions are proving that with the right leadership and the right principles, they can be successful just like larger credit unions. These larger credit unions, membership growth, 19% Community Choice, Advia 12%, Michigan Schools and Government almost 10%. Really strong metrics in Michigan and across the country for membership growth and savings and deposit and loan growth. So to change or not to change is really what I want to talk about. When we go into our boardrooms and our management team meetings, we're really, I think one of the most important challenges for any leader is figuring out what to keep and what to change, because we talk so much about change. And there's a great quote that I have always held dear, I think is attributed to George Bernard Shaw, and he said that our future is equally threatened by those who want to change everything as well as those who want to change nothing. So finding the balance is important. So when you go through that exercise, obviously some of the things you're thinking about preserving and doubling down on, you have to have at least one office. The jury might be out on how many branches a credit union needs to have, but whether you're small or large, you need to have a really good member experience in your facilities. The question is, how many are we going to have and how much are we going to emphasize mobile technology versus the branch network? You need to have a call center. You need to take care of members on the phone. Service, our service credo is our differentiator, so we talk about that. Volunteers are not, there are 12 states across the country that allow compensation of directors. Our law doesn't allow for that. That's a principle we need to keep talking about. Are we going to keep that? Is it important or not? Our ATM networks, keeping credit union in the name. There are credit unions in Michigan and across the country that have periodically taken credit union or minimized the credit union brand from their name. Whether to simplify or whether it had to do with a feeling that the credit union brand wasn't sophisticated enough, that's a big question. Should you keep it or not? The data today shows that credit unions are much more highly regarded. Consumers are twice as likely to trust a credit union than would be a bank customer to look out for their financial well-being. But these are things, our cooperative spirit, our social mission, our market focus. Are we going to stay geographically focused on Detroit Metro or Grand Rapids, or are we going to expand our charter and really get aggressive, maybe even outside the state of Michigan? But in the category of what we should change, this is what I'm really going to talk about today. Member centricity, investment in technology, especially mobile, cybersecurity and other risks, reacting to disruptors, and building the workforce of the future. The basis for this, and before I do, I want to mention that I have invited a half dozen of our really progressive credit union leaders, who I hope are actually in the room, to help me with this presentation. No, I'm not going to ask you to come up on stage, but our Cube TV video crew went out to your credit unions, and we have short little video snippets that are going to help me make some of these points that I think are so important. So the first little clip, and they're very short clips, we asked a couple of leaders, what are some of the things that you think are critically important that we keep no matter how we address change?
Never lose sight of the credit union philosophy. Again, we are people helping people. And never lose sight of that. Again, remember, we're not for profit, not for charity, but for service. The other thing is we will never lose sight of our core values, our service promises, and we reinforce that with staff on a regular basis, and we live it, we breathe it, everybody's held accountable to it, and those are things that will never change.
With all the technology that members are being asked to use these days to transact their business, we always have to keep in mind that they need that human interaction. They want the face-to-face, they want to be handheld through a process that they've not done before. When we're getting into the important types of business that they come in to do, they want to make sure that they're not going to be forced to a computer to take care of it themselves. They're coming in because they need to talk to somebody, and that's where we need to stand up and say, we'd always want to be here to help you.
So that's a great strategic question. What is it that we need to make sure that we keep as we move forward? This is a great quote from Steve Jobs. I'm a big fan of Apple and Steve Jobs. The late Steve Jobs had this quote, "Technology is nothing." Kind of surprised me. What's important is that you have a faith in people, that they're basically good and smart, and if you give them tools, really cool tools by the way, they'll do wonderful things with them. I thought that was a refreshing perspective because we talk so much about disruption and technology, and I think this is true for credit unions as well. Great example, remote deposit capture. Such a simple technology. It's one of the few really compelling reasons that members feel like they need to go into a branch, and yet if we give them a simple, easy to use remote deposit capture feature on their mobile phone, it not only meets a need that they think is cool, they appreciate what the credit union is doing for them, but it also helps you reduce your operating expenses. So there's so many examples, but I think credit unions of all sizes should try to figure out, prioritize the simplest technologies and focus on the need you're meeting as opposed to just chasing technology for technology's sake. So there was a recent report, Deloitte, the Big Four CPA firm, came out with its report, the 2018 Banking Outlook. And Deloitte identified 6 challengers or driving forces that all financial institutions should be thinking about. And by the way, this, again, reinforces my theme. Doesn't matter if you're a money center bank or a small credit union, these things all apply. I added a 7th here, focus on mission and underbanked. So I'm going to talk about these. But what Deloitte tried to do is they said, look, these themes that you see in the middle interrelate with the basic functions of a financial institution. Retail banking, corporate banking, payments, wealth management, capital markets. But these 6 themes, and the one I added for credit unions, I think are the things that credit union boards and management need to be talking about. So there's some interesting data when the financial brand asked credit union leaders specifically, what are the 3 most important trends for the future? Customer experience. Well, they asked credit unions and banks, actually. Customer experience, big data, artificial intelligence, omni-channel, and you see the rest on the list. But the 3 areas of emphasis were the customer member experience, leveraging your data, and omni-channel improvements. And I just wanted to show how this data, the data from these surveys aligns with the challenges and driving forces that I'm going to be talking about. In a slightly different manner, again, the financial brand asked the question, what are your top 3 strategic priorities for this year? Digital experience, data analytics, reducing expenses, automating, recruiting and retaining talent, improving our legacy technology systems, innovation, compliance, security, and keeping an eye on fintechs. And again, I'm just making the point that all of those other research findings align with these 6 driving forces that I want to talk about. So, I'm going to digress a little bit for a minute here. What does this mean? What does this mean for credit unions of all sizes? That's really because most credit unions are smaller. It means that even though you're small, you need to think big. You're going to be small in relative terms. You need to think big and adopt as many of these principles as you can. So, be small, think big. Now, I am going to digress and share a little bit of personal information. I have 7 children. I'm very proud of my family. And I have 5 grandchildren. I just had 2 more. My youngest daughter just delivered twin boys, but they were premature. And so this is Samson. They were delivered at 26 weeks, 1 pound, 12 ounce, and his brother Oliver, 1 pound, 15 ounce. This is my daughter and her husband, Drew, touching and caring for their baby through the incubator. And Oliver is just in the same room right next to them. Here's the point I want to make. It's a plug for credit unions for kids, but also to kind of make an analogy to what I'm trying to say about being small but thinking big. This little guy, this picture is just so heartwarming for me. His mother, my daughter Janessa's finger is being clasped by those 2 little tiny hands through the incubator. And although he's so small and has so far to go, he's going to be in NICU with his brother for 3 months. He's small, but he's thinking big. He's going to not only survive, but he's going to be healthy, and he's going to make a contribution in this world. And this is a plug for the silent auction, our golf outing. We're going to raise over $100,000 for the children's hospitals with your help. And we appreciate that. And I'm guessing I'll probably get more questions about how the babies are doing than anything else in my presentation. That's fine. But the think big questions. So if you don't get anything else out of this presentation, I'm going to pitch these questions. I'm inviting you to read the Deloitte report, and I'm encouraging us all, because this isn't just about you. This is about CUSG and MCUL and the support organizations. How do we align to help the industry, especially smaller credit unions that don't have the resources, with these questions? Do you have a well-defined member experience program? I think there's real danger for credit unions because there's a lot of data that suggests that we are beating the rest of the pack on member service. But it's not enough to say, you know what, members love us a lot more than they love the customers like banks, because our competitors are relentless right now in trying to figure out the customer journey, and they're competing aggressively, and we need to keep up. Second question, are you engaged in legislative and regulatory advocacy and compliance with your associations? I wear two hats. I'm CEO of MCUL, our trade association. The role of CUNA and leagues in helping to take on this new legislative and regulatory environment where we have opportunities to improve the charter and help you with your compliance challenges. This is really important, and your question in your boardroom should be, what are we doing to be a part of that? 3, are you committed enough to your mobile strategies? The Deloitte report talks about technology more broadly, but mobile is really, really important. Do you have an enterprise risk management plan that includes cyber risk? Are you looking to partner with fintech and big companies? Are you investing enough in leadership development and the workforce of the future? And then I added number 7, which has to do with social mission. Are you focused enough on your social mission, including serving the underbanked? So those are the questions. I'm going to just drill into each of them a little bit with help from some of your colleagues. So member service, the member experience. This chart reinforces that when you look at net promoter scores, credit unions do better than regional banks and national banks. The average net promoter score is 45, credit unions are 60. This is the delta between those who would recommend you versus those who would not. And Consumer Reports, the quote here says, credit unions have the highest ratings that they've ever evaluated, with 96% of members highly satisfied versus 80% for banks. Well, that's well and good, but we're only going to stay there, and it's only going to make a difference in terms of growth and reaching out to expand the crediting idea if we have formal member service programs where we're taking the time to focus on improvement. There is a question here that was by DBR Research in February. The question was asked, do you have a formal member centricity? It was actually, do you have a formal customer centricity plan? 55% of large banks have a formal plan. Regional banks, half of them do. Only 27% of credit unions have a formal member centricity plan. So it's something to think about. I recently visited Jackie Buchanan, CEO of Genesis Credit Union. She shared with me one of her favorite books she's ever written, called The Customer Service Revolution. There's a hot tip for you. Check that book out. I know I'm going to. She's taken that book, shared it with her staff. They have what they've done. I know other credit unions have done this. They've come up with what they call WAG statement, We Are Genesis statements. And you can see, we are one team. We communicate openly. We pursue excellence. We're member focused. We improve our community. We inspire creativity and innovation, and we all lead. And they take those principles and they drill them into all their meetings. And that's an example of a fairly simple, on the surface, member centricity program. It doesn't take a lot. You don't have to pay expensive consulting fees, but this is a great example of a more formal member centricity program. So some of the things to think about: leveraging your member data if you can, tweaking your talent management strategies, obviously, and potentially working with other partners. But some best practices I might suggest within all your channels, branch, call center, mobile, ATMs, with all those channels, identify the most important touch points. That's what I hear a lot from credit union leaders. What are the touch points? Where do we need to improve and get better with simplicity and speed? Absorb as much training and information resources as you can at conferences like these and with CUNA. And seek, certainly, consulting partnerships. Work with CUSOs. Do what you need to do to make sure that you're relentlessly focused on member experience. Now, a few perspectives from the leaders that I mentioned.
To me, being member-centric is ensuring we have products and services to meet the needs of our membership, make sure that we evolve products and services as technology changes, as the economy changes, to meet the needs of our members when those things happen in the environment. So we're working always to do that. We're also working to ensure that the members get the best quality service experience that they can, and we utilize the credit union's earnings to invest back into the membership through delivery channels and products and services to make their lives more convenient.
Well, community choice member centricity means for us really going back to our mission and the purpose that we were founded, which was to help our neighbors achieve the life they desire. And all the initiatives and projects that we do, we try to really determine how does it impact the member. Some of the things that we've done to be more member-centric is we've created a member experience council where we brought together different folks around the organization and really tried to figure out what member pain points are in order for us to eliminate the friction that they have when they're doing transactions either in person or online.
So member centricity, arguably the most important strategic priority for you to double down on. Going to the second one, are you engaged in legislative and regulatory advocacy? So we've had some successes recently. Kudos to the CUNA League system for the passage of S2155, meaningful regulatory relief from some of the provisions of Dodd-Frank. And we've done a ton at the state level. And some of the best practices I suggest you take into your boardrooms and your management meetings. Start at the top with the board and the CEO and ask yourselves, what is the commitment? What do we need to do to commit to advocacy and compliance solutions? Designate at least one person to represent you. Identify issues. Help us identify the issues for which you need help. Get involved with PAC fundraising. Participate at all levels of advocacy, whether in Lansing or Washington, and give us your feedback. Here's another perspective from a couple of your colleagues.
In order for legislators to understand the needs, the wants, the desires, and our concerns, we have to continue to voice it. We have to be a voice for our industry. We have to be in front of our legislators. We have to make sure that their understanding of the issues are reflective of what the credit union industry is experiencing. One of the things that we have to be very careful of is that we don't ever want our service to be compromised. We don't want our availability to offer different products to be compromised. So we have to continue to be that voice, to be in front of our legislators, to be sending in letters so that they understand what we can offer to the community.
We have done Hike the Hill. We have participated in the MCUL GAC. We've participated in the GAC with CUNA. So we do a variety of engagement. We locally host chapter meetings or attend chapter meetings if they're hosted by another credit union, where we invite in the local legislators to share stories and information. We have hosted Senator Stabenow and her team to come in and learn about credit union concerns and issues. We've given a tour to Mike Bishop of building, of our offices. So, and during that time, that's when you can educate everyone about the work you're doing.
So this isn't always going to be a Big Ten university competition, but there are two great credit unions and great leaders, and said it better than I could have, specific examples of what they're doing to get engaged and help us out in this important dimension. The third question, are you committed enough to your mobile strategies? Well, obviously, and I'm going to talk a bit more later in the presentation here, mobile is so important. And there are no easy solutions here, but make a commitment to the best possible essential feature mobile app. Every credit union needs to have a mobile app that takes care of the account balances, money transfers, bill pay, remote deposit capture, I would argue. But also consider other products like our LifeSteps Wallet product that helps broaden the functionality and features of your mobile app so that you're really positioning to help meet the needs of your members around shopping and home and auto decisions and financial wellness decisions. Don't stop at the basic transactions, because you'll be just the same as every other bank. Look for ways to differentiate your mobile offering. Promote your mobile offerings, because you want your members to know about them and appreciate them and give you feedback on them. I think sometimes credit unions offer the mobile channel, but they don't do enough to really help educate and motivate their members to use it and trust it. Create a true omni-channel approach, and I'm going to give you an example in a few minutes of how your members need to know how it all works together for their benefit. A couple perspectives from your colleagues.
88% of our members do transactions online or through their mobile channel. Only 11% of them come into our brick and mortar retail locations to do business with us. When you take a look at that mix and how members choose to interact with us, we went ahead and looked at how much investment is made in a brick and mortar retail location versus an online channel. When you spend $1 million or more on a new branch, are you spending that much to improve your digital channels? So what we have done is we've been chosen to make significant investment in those digital channels. We're now introducing new home banking that's going to be a more omni-channel experience. And not only does it have to be an omni-channel experience, but we have to change our design so that it's a mobile-first design. And I think that's cliche in the marketplace right now, but not only does it have to be a mobile-first design, but we have to accommodate the mobile-only member.
So we were very early adopters of online account opening. We actually worked with CU Solutions Group back in 2004 to co-develop a product. And we most recently upgraded to a new online account opening system, and we've launched a new online lending system as well. This summer, we're going to be launching a new mobile and online banking platform, and we're really excited about that because we think it's going to bring a lot more actionable functionality to our members with their accounts and their cards. So with the new mobile app, they'll be able to have joint credentials, facial recognition, card controls, travel notifications, a lot of single sign-on access to our third-party partners like rewards and mortgage accounts.
So obviously, small credit unions, all small credit unions can't do all the things that multi-billion-dollar credit unions are doing. But start small, prioritize, and find ways. I liked Dan's comment. If you're investing hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars in your branch and office experience for your members, you ought to be thinking how much you need to spend in the right ways to improve that mobile journey. Number 4, do you have an enterprise risk management plan that includes cyber risk? Cybersecurity risk is such a big issue for members of Congress. There have been recent hearings on it. In the financial services sector, we as a credit union industry need to know what is it that we need to do to be sure that we're protecting our member data. On the left there are risk categories, or sort of a template for an enterprise risk management structure. Credit, interest rate, liquidity, price. There are tons of risks. Add cybersecurity to that. A couple of best practices. Make a commitment to have some kind of an enterprise risk management plan. Hire a consultant if you need to. Make sure that cyber is part of that. Lean on your tech partners. Focus on the risks that are most relevant to your credit union, because different levels of complexity obviously require a different level of focus. Another quick perspective from your colleagues.
There's a couple steps. Of course, we have the firewall, intrusion detection and prevention services. Also a lot of training with staff to make sure that they know what to look for and they don't happen to click on a bogus email and an attack that way. So really it's through the hardware, intrusion detection, prevention, and staff training. That's really our focus on cybersecurity.
So we do a lot of things in-house at Genesis, so it's extremely important for us to make sure that our systems and our members' data is secure. So we have a team of certified information security specialists, and we also employ a lot of different security tools that build levels of controls and layers of security around our systems and our member data. And we've also built a lot of real-time transaction monitoring systems so we can monitor for deposit anomalies or withdrawal anomalies.
I appreciated these really sort of last-minute asks from these leaders to share their perspectives. I learned so much, and I hope that even though they're short videos, you're getting a glimpse of some of the things that all credit unions ought to be doing. Number 5, and this is a tough one. Every single one of these are kind of daunting and have to be taken down to a level where they're relevant to credit unions of any particular size. But everybody's keeping an eye on the so-called fintech companies and big tech. Big tech being obviously Apple, Google, PayPal, Amazon, and then all of the smaller companies that are starting up to get into various areas of lending and financial services. I think the takeaway is, again, focus on partnership opportunities where you can, through CUSOs perhaps. Maybe there are going to be some investment opportunities. One example, Autobooks is a Michigan-based company that 5 of our credit unions here, along with CUSG, invested. Collectively, we invested $4 million for a 20% combined ownership stake. Autobooks is a company that's helping credit unions and banks be more relevant to small businesses by providing a QuickBooks-type accounting and cash management system that is offered to the small businesses through the credit union, not direct from Intuit. That's one example. But look to invest with your colleagues if you can, collaborate to identify what the priority threats might be and what you can do to beat them if you can and join them if you can. Apple Pay is a good example. PayPal's another. Our LifeSteps wallet product helps credit unions message to their members, because 1/3 of your members are already using PayPal. If you're going to use PayPal, be sure to use your credit union debit card. 2/3 of millennials use Venmo for cash transfers. If you're going to use Venmo, be sure to use your credit union debit card. So that's an example of how you can partner with big techs. Number 6. First some perspectives from your colleagues. Sorry.
So there are so many threats to our business today, with the fintechs, with the threats to our non-interest income, to talent shortages, and especially to the online banks, who are operating 35% more efficiently than credit unions or banks that have brick and mortar. So it's so important for us to make sure that we work extra hard to earn and keep our members' business, especially for the younger tech-savvy members.
I think as an industry as a whole, we have to ensure that we're remaining relevant to our members. So relevancy in our products, in our services, the way that we're delivering our products and services, relevancy in our technology. I think we also have to spread the awareness that anyone can join a credit union. So there's this, I'm always focused on, are we relevant to the individuals that we want to serve?
So I love Tiffany's reference to relevancy, and one area that is so high on my list and our list at CUSG is peer-to-peer money transfers. Most credit unions, especially a majority of small credit unions, don't offer that feature. And yet I could ask for a show of hands, and that's where the world is, especially millennials. We want an app that allows us to easily transfer money from my account to your account. And PayPal and Venmo and Cash and Zelle and others are playing there. If your credit union can't afford a formal solution, or if strategically you just feel like it's an example of we can't beat them, so we'll join them and partner with them, then figure out how to do that. Number 6, and then I'll get to social mission. Are you investing enough in leadership development and the workforce of the future? I could speak for a whole hour. We could have a long day talking about any of these, and I'm not going to do that. But leadership development is something, it's another theme that ties into the member experience challenge. And you know, this is where it is for companies of all sizes. Like I said, credit unions of all sizes need to have a formal program to talk about where are the skill sets we need for the future, how much and in what ways do we need to invest in leadership development. So the bank model of the past per Deloitte is, go back one slide. The bank model of the past kind of focused around the branch. And call center, online, mobile, mail were sort of ancillary. Deloitte suggests, and I think everybody would agree, that mobile is now the center of the strategy for banks, credit unions, large and small. A mobile-first approach and how it all ties together. All the other channels are important, but really emphasizing mobile. Now there's a study here that was done by MIT Sloan Management. 78% of banking execs either strongly agree that their work's going to change considerably over the next 3 to 5 years as a result of digital. So 56% of banking execs are taking on projects that require learning new skill sets. And 60% say that their organization is developing the digital talent and driving continuous learning via experiences by working on opportunities across the organization. So this is where the heads of larger financial institution leadership are at. Best practices: create an adequate budget, obviously, maximize diversity, empower your younger team members to contribute, prioritize, use data analytics, and consider what matters most for your culture enhancements. There are scores of examples, and you can share in your networking what you're doing to create a culture and a work environment that will be attractive to the workforce of the future. Many of you have new campuses like Security Credit Union and Lake Trust and Consumers and others, certainly MSU Federal, where it's not about the brick and mortar, it's about what you do to foster a great staff culture for your team. Couple of perspectives here.
We're trying to focus on the intrinsic motivators of autonomy, mastery, and sense of purpose. If a team member is given the correct training and allowed to master what they do, they're going to feel better about that. They're going to be more confident when they interact with our members. Sense of purpose, we talked about of our mission, and our sense of purpose goes all the way back to our founders of really just helping neighbors achieve the financial life they desire. For autonomy, you need to give the right team members the right amount of space to be empowered and engaged to make the types of decisions that we need them to make in order to make that experience frictionless for our members, to make it easy for our members.
When we're bringing in technologies to do the simple things, it opens up a world of new positions that we can create to help us move into the future. We're looking at positions like a process engineer to make the manual processes automatic, make it simpler for the people doing the work. We're looking at people that will maybe work on the machines rather than working on the member. That's a whole different type of person that we've really not focused on in the past.
One of the reasons I'm so proud of the fact that our state charter allows for higher levels of CUSO investment in Michigan is a lot of this has to be done through CUSOs, like Michigan Business Connection and Mortgage Center and Member First Mortgage and member-driven technology, so that you can share the staff expertise you need for the future. Now, branches still matter. I want to share one quick anecdote from a personal experience I had recently with my credit union. This survey shows that if consumers are asked if your bank's online functionality was amazing, would you still want a branch? Half of them say yes. And the frequency of visits by consumers to financial institutions' branches, 20% go into a branch weekly, 40% go into a branch monthly, 62% at least quarterly. I recently had an experience that demonstrates the importance of omni-channel excellence with my credit union, Zeal Credit Union. I was very boneheaded one day. I went to a Jack's car wash to get my car clean because the weather had suddenly improved in Michigan, and I was cleaning some papers out, putting in the trash, and I inadvertently dropped my debit card in there. By the time I made it through the rush of the car wash, I wasn't going to have them go dump that out, so I knew I was going to have to call to get a new card. So I called the credit union, had great service through their call center, and the important thing is she pointed out to me, you know, you can go to a branch and get an instant issue debit card on the spot. It'll take you 5 minutes, and there will be a modest $5. I don't think she mentioned the fee, but it turns out the service that I got there from this gentleman, I wish I had his name, service was so good, I left with my debit card and my PIN number within 5 minutes, and I thought, wow, Zeal, new headquarters, great branch, great call center, instant issue debit card. That's the way to connect the dots. And I didn't mind paying the $5 fee. So good job, Zeal Credit Union. So I heard at least one round of applause. Need some love for my credit union. The last area is focusing on social mission. You may have read that PayPal, and I think PayPal is a great example of a frenemy. I think we ought to be partnering with them and doing it in a way that encourages credit union plastics to be used. But they recently announced, under the leadership of Dan Schulman, who did the same thing when he was at American Express, that they're offering a prepaid debit card offering to the underbanked and unbanked. And so PayPal's sort of inching into banking services. And certainly Google and Amazon and others have done that. The best practices here, I think, make enhancements to your existing services that have to do with your service credo and how you're different and how you're serving your members' essential financial services needs. Look outside the box to see how you can serve the underbanked, especially in urban areas. Don't just be satisfied with the fact that your member service scores are good and you're serving people well within regulatory constraints. I think we have to push ourselves. We have the capital and the earnings to do it, to figure out how we can do more to serve the underbanked. Focus on your principles, monitor the competition, and I think all of that's important. I'm going to skip past the next video series here and wrap up with a few thoughts and a few announcements from CUSG. As I said, we need to accept that we're small, and the smallness gives us a closer intimacy with our members. That's good for the member experience. We need to formalize that, but we need to think big, regardless of the size of your credit union. Try to take some of these things I've been talking about and see how you can adopt them in your credit union and your service delivery. At MCUL and CUSG, along the left, you see what we do as an association: advocacy, awareness, education, compliance. CUSG as a company, we're focused on core offerings in areas of technology, marketing, and performance to help credit unions with mobile and great websites and things that differentiate niche marketing services and things that help you attract and retain and develop top talent. We have a bunch of things on the horizon that we're looking at. My point here is we're looking to align our service strategies with what we think yours are going to be, so that we can be helpful in helping credit unions serve, grow, and be strong. Now, a couple of things I want to wrap up with here. 3 things: LifeSteps Wallet Roadmap, what we're doing with the Just Getting By campaign to help credit unions project that they care more and do more for people who are financially challenged, as well as everyone in the population. And then a note about a new strategic advisory service that we're launching. This will be my wrap-up, 10 minutes here. I want to play a short little video for each that enlists the help of my great team. And by the way, my team is amazing. Management staff, the entire 140 staff, all of my MCUL staff who contribute to events like this one. And I have 3 of my senior team members who are going to help introduce in short little video snippets where we're headed with LifeSteps Wallet, how we want to help you with the Just Getting By campaign, and what we plan to do with strategic advisory services.
Financial services are evolving like never before. Our banking counterparts aren't just making investments in technology, they're redefining the entire business model. What's more, well-capitalized fintechs like Amazon and PayPal are edging in their own financial products. The widening divide between credit union offerings and consumer behavior is a very real problem. To compete with big banks and fintechs, credit unions need to double down on their commitment to great member service. In the digital age, that means ease and access by way of technology and innovation. Over a year ago, CUSG set out to confront this issue head-on. We sought out to vet more than 100 mobile solutions and eventually acquired a dynamic fintech partner in CU Wallet. In the year that followed, we invested major resources into building a platform that leveraged a new vision and strategic approach to consumer finance. The result was LifeSteps Wallet, a mobile banking enhancement suite designed specifically for credit unions. We gave our first public demo of LifeSteps Wallet at our 2017 annual convention. Since then, credit unions of every asset size have joined the queue for their own custom LifeSteps Wallet build-out. Sales continue to grow at a strong pace, and while sales are important, true success lies in helping every credit union answer the question, are we truly connected with our members? In the months ahead, we'll continue to invest in both the LifeSteps Wallet team and the core platform. Even now, we're working towards an enhanced user interface. By leveraging iOS and Android design conventions, we are creating a more seamless user experience. We're also developing new and expanded features within the app. We're evolving the deals function of the app so that users can choose the categories in which they're most interested. Soon, we'll be able to serve up personalized offers and redemption details which will drive engagement. We're also working to integrate voice recognition and artificial intelligence amongst a host of other features. Finally, we're excited to announce a new addition to the LifeSteps Wallet product line, LifeSteps Wallet Lite. Like its fully customized counterpart, LifeSteps Wallet Lite offers credit unions all the features they've come to expect in a robust application, including local business directory, automotive and home category support, as well as financial wellness. With a one-time setup fee of $2,500 and a recurring cost of $2,500 annually, LifeSteps Wallet enables even the most cost-conscious credit union the ability to enter the mobile space with an effective product offering, guaranteed to surprise and delight membership.
So we're committed to mobile, and the key part of that announcement is that we're introducing LifeSteps Wallet Lite at a much more affordable price point, fewer features, but something that will help credit unions of all sizes take advantage of this suite of enhancements to your mobile offerings. Second, Just Getting By.
The first U.S. credit union opened its doors more than 100 years ago. Americans were offered a real alternative to the for-profit banking system. By design, credit unions were organized around promoting thrift and protecting the financially vulnerable, including the unbanked and underbanked. Almost daily, and in so many different ways, we hear or read about a new statistic reaffirming how the majority of Americans find themselves living paycheck to paycheck, or put more plainly, find themselves just getting by. At times, it's difficult to reconcile these desperate situations with stories of an improving economy or a shrinking unemployment rate. But the truth is, even in the face of all odds, Americans hang on to hope. They will endure the worst of it, and they will still strive for better days. We recognize the struggle. That's why 2 years ago, CU Solutions Group CEO Dave Adams introduced a project we were working on called Just Getting By. At the time, the project was just a collection of stories around financial struggles encountered by everyday Americans. In the year that followed, we took 19 of those stories and we stitched them together with the opinions of financial experts. The result was an 80-minute documentary that was released at our 2017 annual convention. The Just Getting By stories have now been watched more than 100,000 times. The social good campaign that it fuels has now reached over 500,000 Americans. Over time, this project has evolved and grown beyond anything we could have anticipated. We really struck a chord by tapping into a movement. Unfortunately, It's a tall order to speak to a movement. So we experimented with different ways for credit unions to plug into the campaign, but our focus groups and our pilot program revealed that a one-size-fits-all approach to integration simply wouldn't work. So we went back to the drawing board and we sought out a new path for credit unions to leverage the power of just getting by. In short, we intend to open up the creative development and campaign implementation to credit unions themselves, so that we can co-develop a variety of ways to impact people in communities around the state and the country. To support this new approach, our strategy has been twofold. First, we needed a proper funding mechanism, something apart from the considerable resources CU Solutions Group has invested getting the campaign off the ground. So we set up a 501c3, the CU Solutions Group Foundation, to manage the future development of the Just Getting By campaign. This foundation will accept contributions from any entity that wants to pledge, including credit unions and other sponsors, to help grow the campaign's impact. CUSG is proud to match contributions each year up to $50,000. Second, and more importantly, we've devised a program to work with interested credit unions and award special, no-cost projects that utilize our powerful stories in a variety of ways. These projects will ultimately form the mold of what the movement can be with a credit union's help. And that's what we intend to replicate nationally after the Michigan exclusivity period ends. There are many ways for credit unions and individuals to get involved with Just Getting By. Individuals can opt to share their own story or use the resources we put in place to find a credit union and better their financial standing. Credit unions and other organizations can choose to sponsor the campaign through financial contribution to the foundation to help us grow the impact of Just Getting By over time, or they can approach our team with an idea to leverage the Just Getting By content in their own marketing or social efforts. Just Getting By was conceived in the very same spirit as the first credit unions. We use empathy to connect with and empower the financially vulnerable. We raise awareness around the socioeconomic struggles and inequalities facing all Americans. And ultimately, we aim to connect these individuals with the financial guidance, resources, and education offered by credit unions. How this is accomplished is limited only by your team's imagination.
So there is no profit motive for this campaign. MCUL and affiliates, CUSG, have invested close to $1 million in the campaign. We need help sustaining it, but more important, we need help taking your efforts to innovate and meld this into your brand message to your members and communities. And finally, the last announcement is Strategic Advisory Services. We recently hired Brandy Stankovic as our Senior VP in this area, and she has a short video to introduce this program.
Credit unions are facing fierce competition, not only from banks, but from fintech organizations as well, both large and small. Balance that with growing threats to data security, the decision to intelligently invest in new technology, and the task of developing the workforce of the future. Credit union leaders are going to need partners who will help them be more member-centric while balancing risk and building for a profitable future. Our Strategic Advisory Services, a new division of CU Solutions Group, was designed with this dynamic in mind. We go beyond consulting. We engage credit unions to develop an informed, bold, and attainable vision for growth. Our advisors are long-term partners that offer guidance and strategic and operational planning, board governance, compliance, and policy development, as well as CEO executive coaching and HR human resource performance. We measure impact through a combination of products that will strengthen your bottom line. Planning Pro allows you to create a strategic plan as a living document where you can develop and automatically update presentations. You can use call report data to bring in the right questions to the table, all while enjoying a simple, intuitive user experience. Governese is a board relations and policy building tool designed to foster productive relationships between CEOs and the board. This governance library really equips you with manuals, shared resources, board evaluation tools, training, and a lot of board-focused assets. CompEase is an employee compensation solution that provides employers with the tools and information and consulting needed to manage salary administration with ease and confidence. This system is user-friendly and generates simple-to-absorb reports. Performance Pro provides credit unions of all sizes best-in-class performance management technology to improve your employee performance and engagement. Collaboration with industry specialists who understand and believe in your unique business model is integral to our advisory process. Decision support systems ultimately drive results by integrating with business intelligence. Credit unions, organizations can elevate their board members and executives to effectively compete against fintech companies and big banks to thrive in this fast-moving, consumer-centric environment. You'll partner with some of the industry's most skilled and highly experienced advisors who will help you engage with your board and create strategic initiatives that position the organization for the future, satisfy the examiners, and increase your executive's effectiveness. We know that board members are a strategic advantage. We'll leverage this to ensure governance is modernized and meticulous, and all these practices are deployed with tools that measure overall impact. We'll also help build on the strong core principles of the credit union to help you maximize your technology and increase your return on investment through a better deployment of your products and solutions. Credit unions have a lot to gain by streamlining their operations with efficiency. We'll work together to conduct a thorough assessment of your current business practices and align your resources to ensure you get your desired result. That way you can refocus on what really matters, providing the best products and services to your membership.
So thank you, Tim, Nick, and Brandy for helping me introduce these themes. This is not a product pitch. I've tried to lay out a vision for what we think the industry is facing and what credit unions of all sizes need to be addressing, and we want to align CUSG and MCUL, for that matter, with those challenges and driving forces that you're all facing. I hope you found this beneficial. I appreciate your attention very much, and good luck as we continue to advance the credit union idea across Michigan. Thank you very much.